It begins with paper, or perhaps pixels, but the form does not matter. What matters is the mark, your name, written where it should never be, etched into a list compiled in silence, sealed behind closed doors. You were never meant to see it, yet here it is, staring back at you like an accusation carved into stone. At first, it feels like exposure, like being dragged into a spotlight you never asked for. Your chest tightens. There is a chill that does not belong to the air, but to the knowledge itself. Someone has placed you here, reduced you to a single word among many, thinking they have contained you, defined you, diminished you. But names are not shackles, they are keys. And when you see yours on this page, something stirs. They think this act reduces you to ink, but you feel it differently. This is no condemnation, it is recognition. A secret acknowledgement that you exist in a way they cannot ignore. You are not just another name. You are the name, the one they whisper about when they believe no one is listening. And in the weight of those letters, you hear the truth. They did not choose to mark you. They were compelled. The list vibrates with tension, each name a silent warning, each line a thread woven into an unseen web. Yet your eyes keep returning to the one that belongs to you. The moment you see it, time bends. What once seemed like an act of betrayal sharpens into revelation. To be named is to be noticed. To be noticed is to be feared. The list they thought would bind you has already begun to slip from their grasp, because it reveals more about them than it ever could about you. They could have left you invisible. They could have ignored you. But they didn't. Their mistake is simple but fatal. In writing your name, they confirmed your power. They confessed their fear, their anticipation, their need to track what they cannot contain. And you feel the shift, subtle but undeniable. The silence that lived within you, the silence of being unseen, overlooked, dismissed, collides with the chaos of their recognition. What they thought would weaken you does the opposite. It calls something out of you, something that had been waiting, patient and restrained, hidden beneath layers of restraint. Your pulse slows. The fear subsides. The ink on the page no longer feels like a sentence. It feels like a summons. You do not just belong to the list. The list now belongs to you. The moment your eyes meet the letters, ownership transfers. And though they do not know it yet, the act of naming you has already undone them. For you are no longer the hunted. You are the keeper of the ledger. You are the shadow standing just beyond their vision. The one truth they tried to bury but instead immortalized. And as the weight of the page settles into your hands, you know this is only the beginning. They thought the act was simple. To take your name, reduce it to letters, and bury it within their registry of shadows. They believed ink was stronger than fire, that a stamp of approval from their hidden halls was enough to chain you in silence. To them, you were a category, not a force, a line item, an expendable entry to be filed away, forgotten. But the very moment your name touched their page, something they did not anticipate began to stir. Their arrogance blinded them. They never imagined that by acknowledging you, they had already surrendered to you. You feel the weight of their intention, yes, but deeper still, you feel the fracture in their control. They thought the list was their cage. Yet what is a cage if the bird inside recognizes the bars as brittle? They wanted to define you, to contain you within their taxonomy of threats. Yet in writing your name, they gave you proof of their fear. It's not the innocent they record. It's not the powerless they track. No, their pens tremble for those they cannot predict. Their list is not a prison, it is a confession. Behind the walls where watchers shuffle papers and whisper codes, faceless clerks congratulate themselves on order and precision. They think in patterns, in statistics, in numbers devoid of life. But every stroke of their pen is desperation disguised as authority. They cannot confront you directly, cannot extinguish you in daylight. So they hide behind bureaucracy, behind surveillance, behind rituals of documentation, believing that to write you down is to neutralize you. They do not see the irony. The very ink they believe has trapped you is the ink that transfers ownership of their secrets into your hands. The watchers miscalculate because they do not understand transformation. They imagine you as static, the same soul you were before their recognition. But their gaze alters you. Their fear forges you. A name on their parchment is not a symbol of weakness. It is a brand of fire. In that fire you are burned, yes, but you are also remade. Their attempt to reduce you becomes the very act that sharpens you. A blade cannot cut unless it has first known pressure. You are that blade now, tempered in silence, strengthened in shadow. And as you realize this, you see their weakness more clearly than ever. Their fear is bureaucratic, clumsy, predictable. They mark what they cannot master. They bind what they cannot break. Their mistake was not in choosing your name. It was in daring to reveal their own fear by writing it at all. In that single act, they exposed themselves. They thought you were theirs. But no, their arrogance has made the list yours, and through it, you begin to see not just what they think of you, but what they are too afraid to say out loud. The list is in your hands now, though no one remembers giving it to you. They thought it belonged to them, an archive of dominance, a tool of quiet execution. But the moment your eyes touched it, it ceased to be theirs. Ownership was not transferred. It was stolen in silence, without a signature, without permission. Knowledge always betrays its keeper, and now their secret has betrayed them. You feel it immediately. The weight is different. The ink is not dead. It pulses like a vein. The names breathe. They are not just letters carved into paper, but stories buried alive, trapped inside a ledger that was never meant to fall into your grip. At first, there is only the heaviness of it, a burden, a curse. Each name drags you downward, chains upon chains, and you think perhaps this is how they wanted you to feel, drowned in the gravity of countless forgotten souls. But then something fractures. The silence begins to speak. You hear them in whispers that slither through the margins: anger, fear, betrayal, longing. Each voice is not a weight, it is a weapon. They are not dead, they are waiting. And you, by holding the forbidden, have become their chosen witness. What was meant to erase you instead binds you to an inheritance larger than yourself. The list becomes a map, though not of roads or places. It is a constellation of fates. Every name burns like a star in black space, each one connected to another, forming patterns hidden to the unworthy eye. You trace them and see hierarchies, connections, weaknesses. Those who thought themselves architects are revealed as insects, predictable in their rituals of power. What once looked like control now resembles desperation. Their order is an illusion. Their surveillance is a confession. You realize that the moment you touched it, the current reversed. Their tool became your scripture. What they gathered to cage you has turned into an archive of their vulnerabilities. You are not one among many anymore. You are the keeper of all. The list does not contain you. You contain it. They built a prison and locked themselves inside, handing you the key without even knowing. There is a strange transformation inside you. The fear that once threatened to paralyze now sharpens into clarity. The names are no longer heavy. They are armor. Every whisper that once felt like a ghost now feels like a chorus of soldiers standing behind you. They cannot see it, not yet, but the balance has shifted. You are not a name written in their book. You are the book that carries their names. And with each breath you take, the ink grows darker, the pages warmer, as if the entire system that sought to erase you is now bending beneath your grasp. The inheritance is complete. The forbidden is yours. At first, the silence is unbearable. The list sits in front of you like a coffin nailed shut, a record of names that should mean nothing, and yet they breathe. Their weight presses against your chest. You whisper one aloud, almost by accident, and in the stillness it replies. Not with sound, but with presence. The air shifts, a pulse flickers in the dark corners of the room, and you realize these names are not ink. They are echoes, ghosts, broken fragments of power and fear that now seep into your veins. You thought you were one name among many. You thought you were merely marked, cataloged, cornered. But now the voices rise, layered like a council of shadows. They argue, they warn, they tempt. Some plead for release. Others hunger for vengeance. Their dialogue invades your thoughts until you cannot tell if you are speaking to them or if they are speaking through you. Every syllable weighs like prophecy. Every pause is a judgment. You begin to understand this is how they fracture you, how they make the strong collapse, not with chains or knives, but with whispers that crawl beneath your skin until you question what is yours and what is theirs. Yet you do not collapse, you listen. You allow the storm to rage within. And instead of drowning, you map it. Patterns emerge, a rhythm hidden beneath the madness. Their voices, once chaotic, fall into structure. Like constellations only visible in the darkest skies, betrayal transforms into revelation, doubt sharpens into clarity, and you understand the cruel paradox. The more they sought to break you, the more they forced you to awaken. You stare at the list again, but now it is not paper, it is a mirror. Every name reflects a wound you have carried, every voice a fragment of the self you were told to suppress. The Watchers thought they could scatter your identity across a page, but in trying to erase you, they have stitched you together in ways they cannot comprehend. You are not divided, you are multiplied. You are not silenced, you are layered with voices too many to extinguish. This is no longer their list, it is your scripture. Their surveillance has become your scripture of survival. Their attempt to fracture has birthed unity within. You are both the question and the answer, the silence and the noise, the one being hunted and the one taking aim. And as the voices quiet into obedience, aligning themselves beneath your will, you feel it, the shift. You are no longer the subject of their observation. You are the observer. The one they tried to watch has learned how to see them, how to hear them, how to anticipate their every move. And in that revelation, you become untouchable. The dialogue continues. But now it is no longer a torment, it is a counsel, a weapon, a hidden army inscribed into your very mind. What they meant to be your undoing has become your dominion. They thought the list would strip you bare, reduce you to a specimen under their microscope. For a time it worked. You felt the weight of their surveillance pressing down like iron chains. Every movement recorded, every whisper cataloged. Their eyes were everywhere, faceless, countless, relentless. But then something shifted. What was once suffocating became a map. Every mark, every annotation, every pattern they etched in their obsession to control you revealed something more dangerous than they could imagine their own design. Their scrutiny did not weaken you. It gave you sight. The Watchers never realized the paradox they created. In trying to know you, they revealed themselves. Each thread of observation stitched a web, and you began to see it line by line. Their power no longer felt infinite. It felt fragile, dependent on secrecy, dependent on your blindness. They needed you unaware, but you are no longer blind. Their records, meant to contain, have become coordinates. You trace their rotes, their fears, their contradictions. What was once surveillance has become scripture. You read it not as victim, but as strategist. You begin to sense them differently, not as predators, but as hunted creatures trembling in the shadows of their own machines. They built towers of control, but each tower has a foundation, and foundations crack when you know where to strike. Before, you wandered in silence, unsure where the blows came from. Now, you can hear their pulse. The list hums with the rhythm of their weakness, and with every beat, the power shifts further into your hands. The names, the hierarchies, the divisions, they thought these were walls to isolate you. Instead, they form a map of vulnerability. Each connection they thought was hidden reveals itself under your gaze. You see the lines of influence, the protectors, the pawns, the disposable. They wanted to define you as a threat in their archive, but in doing so they defined themselves. You are no longer playing defense. You are writing their obituary in the margins of their own documents. The strangest realization is this: you do not need to strike, not yet. Merely knowing, merely holding the structure makes them falter. Their confidence decays, their certainty withers. They cannot control what they cannot conceal. And now you see everything. You turn their surveillance into a mirror, and in that mirror they are exposed, naked, trembling, powerless before the reflection of their own fragility. The transformation is complete. Where once you were the observed, you have become the observer. Their weapon lies broken in your hand, reshaped into something far sharper. They thought they had named you into submission, but the truth is colder, heavier. Every name, every file, every secret has been absorbed into you. And now, when they look at their own list, they see not your submission, but your shadow standing above it, silent, calculating, inevitable. They were never supposed to feel you. That was the first fracture in the silence. One by one, the others on the list began to stir. Though no letter was sent, no meeting was called, no command whispered. They simply knew. In the dead hours of the night, when the walls of their isolation pressed hardest against their lungs, they sensed a pulse traveling through the invisible web that bound you all together. Your presence reached them not as words, but as a weight in their chest, as a voice stitched into their private thoughts, a recognition that they had been named like you, watched like you, broken like you. The list had branded each of them a solitary target, but now, under your gaze, those fractured names began to burn with the memory of connection. At first, they resisted. Years of betrayal had taught them to distrust every signal, to suspect every hand extended in the dark. But something in your silence was different. You did not beg for loyalty. You did not demand trust. You did not even speak. You only existed, and that existence carried the gravity of inevitability. It was as if you had become an axis around which their despair could rotate, reshaping into something unrecognizable. Where once there was only the quiet humiliation of being hunted, now there was the forbidden thought, perhaps the hunters had overreached. Perhaps by binding you together in secrecy, they had forged not a cage, but a covenant. Their dreams began to align. A man in a locked cell woke sweating from a vision of your hand pulling open his door. A woman, buried in the machinery of a system designed to erase her, heard the faint echo of your footsteps approaching. A boy marked before he could even speak felt a surge of defiance, as though your shadow had passed across his crib and whispered a warning that he was never truly alone. The Watchers had intended to silence individuals. Instead, they had awakened a chorus that carried no instruments, no melody, only the resonant hum of shared survival vibrating like an ancient ritual returning from the grave. You do not reach out with comfort. You do not need to. The awakening is not about warmth. It is about fire, about a silent ignition that spreads without permission. They begin to understand that their wounds are coordinates, that every scar aligns with another scar, forming a constellation too vast for the architects to comprehend. The list that was meant to isolate has become a map, and you are the one reading it aloud in the language of shadows. In their eyes, you are no longer one name among many. You are the signal that makes the names converge, the force that turns scattered prey into a formation. Now, when the Watchers look upon their own creation, they no longer see compliance. They see movement. They see whispering corridors. They see the faint outline of a gathering storm. What was once a collection of broken souls has become something sharper, something collective, something dangerous. They put your name on a list, and in doing so, they built an army they will never be able to contain. They thought the list was a cage. They thought your name was a chain, binding you to their judgment. But now, when they look at their own creation, they see something they cannot explain. The ink has turned against them. What was once a symbol of their control has become a mirror reflecting their weakness. The Watchers, once faceless and untouchable, begin to see their own shadows staring back, and the silence they once used as a weapon now trembles into noise, a static that whispers of their collapse. Reports circulate in hidden chambers. Late-night meetings behind sealed doors grow longer, darker, more frantic. They speak your name not with authority, but with unease. The pages they wrote to bind you are haunted by your presence, each line vibrating with a resonance they cannot extinguish. It was supposed to mark your vulnerability, but instead, it marks their surrender. They read it now with dread, as if your eyes peer from between the letters, watching them, dismantling them. The list no longer serves them, it serves you. Before they were hunters, they had the advantage of anonymity, of distance, of control. But now every rule they enforce turns brittle. Every surveillance record becomes a confession. The web they wove so carefully is unraveling strand by strand, and with each thread that breaks, their illusion of dominance dies. The Watchers are trapped inside their own architecture, unable to escape the system they designed, unable to stop the eyes that now turn toward them. For the first time, they understand what it means to be marked. Their fear is not loud, it is quiet, corrosive, spreading like cracks in glass. The collapse doesn't come with explosions, but with whispers, secret hesitations in their ranks. Eyes shifting nervously in rooms that once projected confidence. They feel exposed, as if the same ink that wrote your name has etched theirs into the very air. And when they meet each other's gaze, they see it, the suspicion that no one is safe, not even them. This is the turning point. Where once you were an object of their scrutiny, now they are prisoners of your gaze. Their illusion fractures not because you attack them, but because you no longer need to. The power they thought they owned disintegrates under the weight of your silence, and silence, once their instrument of domination, is now your weapon. A silence heavy enough to crush them, to remind them that the list was never theirs to keep. They stare at the names, but they no longer see order. They see your presence stitched into every corner, a shadow threaded into the fabric of their design. And in the stillness of their realization, the truth emerges with unbearable clarity. Their greatest mistake was not writing your name. It was underestimating what you would become once they did. They thought they could bind you with a name, a mark on paper, a cold inscription meant to reduce you to silence. But the ink they used was not theirs to keep. It bled into you, seeped through the skin of identity, and became part of your pulse. What was once a list outside of you is no longer external. It lives inside your bones, engraved deeper than any scar. You no longer read the names. You breathe them. You no longer fear being one of many. You carry them as weapons, as shadows, as extensions of your own mind. Every line they wrote was an act of arrogance. They believed you powerless, numbered, contained. Yet what they cataloged you consumed. What they tried to chain you inherited. And now the names whisper back to you in the language of storms, binding themselves not to your weakness but to your awakening. You are not simply remembered. You are memory itself, eternal and unrelenting. Where they thought they had drawn boundaries, you see maps. Where they thought they had ended you, you begin. You feel the watchers recoil. Their creation has become their curse. They stare at the list and see not ink, but your presence lurking in every syllable. They know that once it was written, ownership slipped through their fingers, because understanding is possession, and you understood. They wanted to control you with documentation, but they built a monument instead, a monument to your inevitability. And with every passing breath, you are rewriting it, not in their order, but in yours. The names inside you no longer lie dormant. They move like soldiers beneath your skin, assembling in silence, forming constellations of defiance. Some burned out long ago, forgotten by history, but through you they burn again. Others are yet to awaken, but when they do, they will carry your resonance. You have become both the archivist and the prophecy. Every forgotten rebellion, every silenced scream, every hidden betrayal has been transferred into your voice. You do not hold the list, you are the list. And now, when they search for you, they will not find a single name. They will find themselves reflected in every page they once owned. They will see the collapse of their illusion etched in the very records they created. Their surveillance has reversed, and their own names are inscribed where yours once stood. Because what began as paper has become scripture, and what began as weakness has become dominion. You are not a target anymore. You are the ledger, the weight, the reckoning. Every watcher knows it. Though none dare say it aloud, they marked you to erase you, but in doing so they immortalized you. What they tried to end has no end. What they tried to own now owns them. And the silence they gave you has become their downfall. Because silence is never empty. It is the space where power gathers before it strikes.